Hello and welcome once again to Deft But Metal's Prick Up Your Ears. Yes, hello, tis I, Gary Grimm, here from the Deft But Metal podcast, here once again to talk to you about new releases from the metal realm. In this episode I'm going to be covering releases from December 2020, but also releases from January 2021. Sorry, it's taken a while to get there. As those of you that watch the videos, you might have seen that I've released a few interviews that I did to wrap up 2020. So I interviewed Thomas Eriksson from Mork, Alex Jones from Undeath, James McBain from Hellripper, and I've got one more of those interviews that I've still got to edit and get to you. I didn't have a full one of these review videos for December because I was busy putting together all those interviews and having a little bit of a holiday as well. So I've got a lot to cover in this video. But before I jump into the reviews, I'm going to plug a few things that I think are worthy of your attention. Motorhead. I love Motorhead, one of my favorite bands of all time. I got this for my birthday, which happened in December, and it's pretty amazing. It's a 40th anniversary box set of the Ace of Spades album. Heaps of stuff in here. There's a tour booklet, a comic book, live records, the Ace of Spades album itself. I think there's an instrumentals vinyl single in there. There is a double record of rarities and B-sides and alternate takes, which is really awesome because you get to hear the band in the studio fucking up and just having a good time recording these songs. There are still copies of this available. I've seen them at Utopia Records, which is another thing I'd like to plug. I'm all for supporting the band directly, buying merch and records and CDs and what have you directly from the band, be it via Bandcamp or their store. I also like to support record stores because a lot of the music I listen to is from America, from Europe. It costs a lot with shipping, mail time, like waiting for mail, all that kind of stuff. Record stores and distros, particularly for us living in Australia, takes some of the stress out of dealing with postage and all that kind of stuff, and have the records and what have you there ready for you to purchase. I'm going to shout out 3 places based in Australia that are really worth checking out, particularly if you're watching from overseas and having a hard time finding some stuff that has sold out elsewhere, has sold out at the label or on the band's Bandcamp or what have you. So first of all, like I mentioned with the Ace of Spades box set, Utopia Records. I'll put a link to them in the description of this video, but I've been going there since I was a wee metalhead, and they've always had really passionate people working there. They're really good for the kind of bigger, well-known metal releases that come out. Some of the stuff, the more underground stuff that you get from smaller labels, not so much sometimes. I mean, they get that stuff in sometimes, but it's such a great store to go into, to dig around, have a look at what's there, and I usually find something that I wasn't expecting that I pick up hastily because it can be hard to find, or it's just something that I really wanted. Utopia Records, link in the description. Also wanted to shout out Seance Records, which is Sydney based. It's an online distro. I actually bought from Seance Records a couple of the records that I'm going to be talking about in the new releases today. I don't have them yet because COVID and mail times and all that kind of stuff. But Seance Records, there's going to be a link for them in the description as well. A lot of stuff from Iron Bonehead, Debamure Morty, I hope that's how it's pronounced. I'm pretty sure they do Nuclear War Now. They're also a label, so they've got their own local releases. I've gotten heaps of good stuff from there in the past. Titan Blood, Nocturne's Mist from South Australia, Tetragrammicide, Pestilential Shadows, a whole bunch of really cool underground, hard to find stuff. You can find it at Seance Records, link in the description. Finally, I just wanted to talk about Direct Merch. The team behind Direct Touring has also put together a distro for merch and for records for extreme metal, and there's a lot of hard to find stuff, or hard to find in Australia stuff. They're really worth checking out too. Often have really decent sales and discounts, and the link again will be in the description. All these links are in the description, okay? If you're like, where do I find that? It's in the description. Finally, a couple of books that I've been checking out that Jade got me. She got me that amazing Motorhead box set, but she also got me some books and some cassettes and records, and I've been very spoilt over the Christmas and birthday break. Blood, Fire and Death, a Swedish metal story by Ika Jansson and John Jefferson Klingberg, about 90s Swedish death metal scene, and a bit of stuff either side of that, a bit of black metal in there, a bit of old school stuff like Heavy Load, cool interviews in there like with John from Dissection and what have you. Bathory, Watain, a whole bunch of really cool stuff in this book, Blood, Fire and Death, the Swedish metal story. I've also been reading Rob Halford's autobiography, which has been a very, very interesting read. I love reading about Priest in the studio, talking about how some of these albums came together, how these songs came together, but also the struggles that Rob Halford was going through as a closeted gay man, too frightened to reveal his sexuality to the world because he was in a massive metal band in a time where homosexuality wasn't as accepted in society as much as it is today. I mean, there's still steps to go, obviously, with that kind of thing, so we're not 100% there yet, but this is from a time where there was a lot more discrimination around homosexuality. I guess it wasn't quite as understood and as talked about as it is today. And so hearing Rob talk about those struggles, coming out of the closet, drugs and alcohol addiction, deaths, touring, just everything. It's a really candid book and really worth your while checking out. Rob Halford Confess. So enough plugging all that stuff. I'm going to start plugging some recent releases. This release was one that came out it was released streaming in November, but the official release was in December. There's a band and album title that I am going to mispronounce. I call them Aklys, A-K-H-L-Y-S, Aklys. The album is called Melano, and it's out through, and the label I'm going to screw up, a Debamure Morty Records. Have a listen. So this is one of the albums that I've ordered through Seance Records, and it's on its way to me now. Otherwise, I'd have it here to show you. It is one of the projects of a guy. What is it with names in this episode? I'm gonna screw up everyone's name. This is he goes by the name Nas Alchemeth. You might know him from the band Nightbringer, Aewatos, Bestia Arcana, and etc. etc. He's been in a whole lot of bands. The album Melano is named after an Orphic goddess, according to the liner notes. The goddess is a bringer of nightmare and madness, which is kind of fitting thematically with some of the songs out here. There's songs about nightmares and sleep paralysis, like Nas Alchemeth's own struggles with sleep paralysis, nocturnal terror, all that kind of stuff. It's really creative, dense, dark black metal. A lot of the elitists kind of shun bands for breaking the mold, like projects like Ecclese here. But for me personally, I love the old school black metal. I love raw, lo-fi black metal, but I also love bands that kind of take chances, that take the genre into exciting new directions, but without sacrificing any of the energy and the evil and the passion that goes into some of the best bands of the genre, from the genre's old school. On this album, you're going to hear interesting riffs that go in directions unexpected, epic production, and when I say good production, it's not so clean that it takes away any of the darkness or evilness of it. The production fits the tone that being produced by the music. I feel anyway. There's a little bit of synth in there that isn't overbearing. It's just kind of another layer of texture in the whole swirling miasma that are these songs. It's really worth your time if you're into hearing something that's kind of a bit different, that's a bit exciting for the genre of black metal. I'm going to be talking about a lot of black metal in this video as well, but I'm going to do some quick fire reviews at the end where I'll get to some death metal. But when it comes to black metal, Ecclese, even Nightbringer, if you haven't heard Nightbringer, and any of the other Nas Alchemeth's other projects, I really recommend. Worth your time. Ecclese, Melano, check it out. Up next is a band whose name I can pronounce. The album title I might struggle with, but the label I can pronounce as well. So this is Abigor. The album is called Totschlager, I hope. I don't know, I could be wrong. Totschlager. Bartender, one Totschlager please. It's called Totschlager, a Saint Slayer's songbook. It's out now through WTC, or World Terror Committee Productions, and you can hear a little bit of Abigor right here. I feel like this is a band that doesn't really get enough attention, so I'll just give you a little bit of background on them. From Austria, you can hear Jeremy and myself talk about these guys and the Death to All About Metal podcast, the Black Metal episode number 2, which was a particularly drunken episode of the podcast. But we talk about Abigor, we talk to the person that answers the phones in Austria, which is very interesting. So definitely go back and check that out. The link for that will be in the description as well, if I remember to put it in there. But yeah, the Austrian black metal band. Been around since 1993. This is their 12th studio album, I believe, and they've gone through so many personnel changes, particularly around the vocalist department, but also elsewhere. And I feel like these lineup changes have really had some kind of effect on the evolution of their sound. Like I said, 12 full-length albums, but they've also had countless demos, splits, EPs, compilations, all kinds of stuff. And the early stuff started as more traditional black metal, but there's always been a little bit something extra to it. But the more the band has evolved and changed and moved on, the music has gotten so much more strange and inventive, to the point where whenever they release something, I just feel like I'm going to hear something that I haven't quite heard before in the realm of black metal or metal music in general. In the last few releases, I've just found twisted riffs and leads, songs that make really sharp tonal shifts partway through, so they'll start off in one place and end up somewhere completely different. Sometimes there's some synthy and electronica kind of parts thrown in there as well. Probably the best example of the diverse nature of this band is an album they released in 2007 called Fractal Possession. Really recommend checking that out if you want to see this band at their most out there. For this album, Touchschlager, and that's a pronunciation I'm going to stick with, I don't care. This album is, on the first listen I felt it was a little bit more reined in than something that, like Fractal Possession, which I mentioned before. That was just at the first glance more. I just kind of felt like it seemed like they were harkening back a little to the more traditional roots. But then I listened more and more, and there's a little bit of the more schizophrenic kind of out there stuff that you'd expect from these guys. Once you reach tracks like Orkblut, Tartarus Tides, that's another one that kind of is a bit of a different direction for these guys. You know, they mess with a little bit of melody and stuff like Tartarus Tides and Scarlet Suite for the Devil. So I kind of feel like there's a bit of something for the people that know what to expect from Abigor, which is the unexpected. So some really strange, layered textures, dark black metal, and inventive, progressive kind of music in there. But there's also someone that wants a little bit of the more traditional stuff that these guys have also put out there in the past. Definitely recommend this band for those of you looking for a musical group that have forged their own path in black metal, kind of like Eccles, who I mentioned previously, are doing. Hulda has finally released her debut album, God's Lastring, Hymns of a Forlorn Peasantry. It's out through Iron Bonehead Productions, and it sounds a little something like this.
Spirit will come to power for deliverance. Those sacrifice.
This is another album that I've ordered through Seance Records, and that should be coming to me around the same time as Eclipse. It's a one-woman black metal band based in the United States. I've been a fan of Holder since the first demo they released called Ascending the Raven Stone, which I have here. As soon as I heard it, at the time it was only released on cassette, and I grabbed the cassette, and this kind of started my cassette collection, really. When I first heard this cassette, I kind of loved the raw, like true black metal sound. They kind of sound like old school Scandinavian or European black metal band, which makes sense seeing as the sole performer in the band, her name's Mars, I believe. She's originally from Belgium. I think this came out in 2018. It doesn't say here. Oh, it does. 2018. And since then, there've been more EPs and demos released, so I've been waiting for a full-length album. It's finally arrived. Straight off the bat, on first impressions, there was obviously a bit more production value to the album than the demos, obviously, because she's got a backing of a label there. And it seems like she's really showcasing what she can do in this album, production being part of that. Again, it's not so, the production isn't so squeaky clean that it kind of suffers for it. There's still plenty of grit to be found in there. I'm pretty sure mostly the previous recording synth has been pretty minimal, but it's coming to the forefront a little bit more in this album. And to be honest, when the first single came out for this album, I was maybe disappointed's not the word, but I was a little bit bummed that it moved away from the more raw black metal sound. The introduction of the synth though didn't quite click with me on the first spin. That was the first listen. The more I hear this album, the more I appreciate what Holder is doing here. It was released in January. It's probably going to be part of my best of 2021 list at the end of the year for sure. I'm really looking forward to getting my hands on a physical copy to hear it on the vinyl, but I'm also really keen to see where Holder goes next with the sophomore album. So for a great debut black metal full-length album, check out Holder. One last full-length review before I get into the quickfire reviews. This is for the band Horner. They got an album that I cannot pronounce, but you'll see it on the screen in a second. I don't speak Finnish. Kuuleman Kyrjo. I don't know how to pronounce it, but it's also out through World Terror Committee Productions. Have a listen. So like I mentioned, the band's from Finland, Finnish black metal band. I love Finnish black metal. They've got a real sound of their own, the Finns do. They've been around since 1994 and they've released a shit ton of demos, EPs, splits, etc. This is their 10th full-length album. So there's one original member left in the band from 1993, I believe. Another pronunciation I'm gonna screw up. His name is Shatraug, let's say that. And he's been involved in the band Horner one way or another since its inception. He's also been in a lot of other bands, for me most notably Sargist, who I love and I've seen live. as I've seen Horner as well. Got a guy called Spellgoth on the vocals, and he's been part of the band since 2009, I believe. One thing I picked up from seeing both Sargist and Horner live is that they seem like the real deal. When you see them in the flesh presenting this, raw, ugly black metal on stage, they really come across as anti-human, anti-life, etc. No friends, no mosh, all that stuff. But as for this album, it came out in December 2020, and it's a real long one. It clocks in at just over an hour, I think it was, whereas a lot of releases nowadays clock in around 40 minutes or so they fit on a record. I believe this was released as a double LP as well, just for the length of it. And for the casual fan, it might seem a little too long, it might seem a bit samey, but I love this band, so I really lapped up the opportunity to hear as much new music from them as I could. Yeah, I guess you could say it's a little bit samey in the sense that it's unrelenting. It's full speed pretty much the whole album. It's dark, it's imposing, it's a very grim atmosphere, which I would expect from a Finnish black metal band. It's well produced, it's punishing to the end. I can't pronounce the title of it, but it's Horner. You saw the title before. Rewind and find that album, check it out. It's really worth an hour of your time. Now for quick fire reviews. I often only talk about full-length albums on these videos, but I'm going to make an exception for the single called Spawn of Monstrosity by Sydney death metal band Plague. Draws heavily from the old school Swedish death metal vibe. It's released as a single from their upcoming album Within Death. There is a music video to accompany it. I'll put a link in the description. That album's coming out soon on Bitter Lost Records. Once it's out, I'll talk about it a bit more on here. I've been bad with pronunciations in this episode. Undergang. I can't pronounce the name of the album. I'm going to write it on the bottom of the screen. You can also hear how to pronounce the band name and the album title in the interview I did. This is the last interview for my 2020 wrap-up that I conducted. I still have to edit it together. Hopefully that should be online soon. This album should have been a full-length review, but I think we talk about it enough in the interview that you'll get the idea. Dirty, sick, death, doom, grime. Remove any thoughts that you may have in your mind about supposed political agendas and what have you from the band Hate Forest. They got a new album out. It came out on Christmas Day 2020 called Hour of the Centaur. I find the album very enjoyable, good old-fashioned buzzsaw fast black metal with very death metal approach to the vocals. True cult. First album I heard for 2021 was by a band called Transylvania. The album's called Of Sleep and Death. Pretty straight ahead black and thrash, and while it's probably not the most inventive release I've heard in a while from this genre, I still found it enjoyable. Frozen Soul, Crypt of Ice. This was the second new release I heard for 2021, living up to the name, very icy death metal from the 20 Buck Spin label. It's been getting a lot of attention for a good reason. I thought the music was a touch repetitive, but it's a very promising debut. So I'm looking forward to them stepping it up a notch for the next one. Asphyx, Necrocerus,
Crossroads, sure. Dutch Death Doom Legends been around since '87, I think. The first full length since 2016 with the album Incoming Death. Bit of speedy riffing, bit of mid-pace stuff, slow sludginess. I'm just glad to see a band responsible for such genre-defining early work still releasing quality metal. And finally, my last quickfire review is actually two releases by the same band. One's an EP, one's a live album. It's Diocletian from New Zealand. They released the Darkness Swallows All EP, and they released the Live in Leipzig album. Death, black, war, metal. The EP is 4 previously unreleased tracks from around the time they recorded their legendary Doom Cult album. There's also a cover of Bathory's Possessed from the album The Return on there, which is very harsh and very punishing, but worth checking out for fans. Live in Leipzig is a recording of the band live in Leipzig, so I guess it's not just a clever name. Recorded in 2012, probably a nod to Mayhem with an album of the same name. I've seen this band live I think twice now, and very crushing live band, and this album, it gives you a glimpse of that. So that's my quickfire reviews. That's everything for this video. I packed 2 months worth of quality metal into this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I'll try to be a little funnier in the next video, I hope. I think just because I had so much that I had to talk about, I was very straight down the barrel. No room for podcasting around, really. Tell me what you think in the comments, email, on the Facebook, whatever, wherever you're seeing this, however you want to contact me. Tell me what you'd like to see. Tell me if I've missed anything. If you think I might have missed something, check out the playlists that I make for Death Toll and Metal. Of new releases. I've got one for December and January that'll be linked in the description. The description of this video is just going to be all links. There'll be like this much description and then like a list of links. So what? There's plenty of stuff for you to check out there. I, as always, have been Gary Grimm. You, as always, have been watching Death Toll That Metal's Prick Up Your Ears. I'll see you for the next one.